Company Man is sort of a computer espionage movie, and that's the main idea of it. But I think of it as a love story. So that's how I perceive this film as. My character, Rita, is sort of a femme fatale character where she comes into this man's life, Morgan Sullivan, and she sort of interrupts his mission and creates more chaos for him. So he's already lost in his identity. He doesn't really know who he's supposed to be, who he is, and she keeps telling him that you are not Jack Thursby, you are Morgan Sullivan. And then he falls in love with her at the same time, which is kind of her plan in some ways. Not so much for him to fall in love with her, but for him to be drawn to her some way. And the reason why, when we find out in the end, is because he's in love with her to begin with. It's one of the first times he sees her. He sees her earlier on at the ice machine, and she's got a robe on, and he's sort of gone through all this hell, and then he just kind of notices her, and he's completely taken by her. So when he sees her the second time at the ice machine, he starts following her, and this is the first time, once he finds her on the rooftop, that he has a conversation with her and then gets sucked into the whole thing and gets drawn in. And so she continues to feed him information that he doesn't know, where the information is coming from and if he should believe it or not. And by the end of the film, I think he's so confused and lost that he, in the end, doesn't trust her at all and ends up shooting her. So, and for her, she has so much belief and love for him that the audience doesn't know that she's doing this all for him, which is the beauty of this character, because she comes off very distant, but the reality of it is she's doing exactly what he told her to do. So to me, that's love.
Absolutely.
It's hard because I think what it is, the way Rita's going to be perceived is the way that Jeremy is going to play how much she's going to be perceived and how much the audience will take her in. Because if he doesn't care for her at all, that's the end of her story. But because he's completely transfixed by her, there's something about her that's completely mesmerizing that draws him in, and so will draw the audience in as well. And the way that Vincenzo, I think, has been shooting it is also kind of in a very sultry way to sort of seduce. And I think that's her character. Like, he chases her, he's going after her the whole movie to find what it is that he feels for her, or what it is that he's finding that she is the missing puzzle. And you don't find until the end that she has been doing all this for his sake, basically. So she makes him think that he should be pursuing her, but the reality of it is that she's been setting up all this these plans for him to follow her. So it's a very interesting thing. I think once you see the movie, you'd have to really re-see the movie to understand exactly what's going on, because that's what's so interesting about it. That's when I read the script, I knew immediately that I was interested in it, firstly because of that, and that I had to go back and reread, the scenes that they were in, especially to realize that she is playing this whole scene to get his attention to turn in another way, and I think that's really intriguing. To what she ends up doing, which is being as distant as she possibly can, is the only way that she can love him, because she knows that if she gets involved with him and he snaps out of it, that he could be killed and she'll probably lose him forever. So knowing that information, she really needs to keep it together, and she needs to do everything according to plan. And if he doesn't somehow, when they first meet at the bar, if she doesn't seduce him there enough to follow, her and to be intrigued by her, then she's never gonna hook him in. And if she doesn't, then she's lost him forever to the brainwashing technique, which she'll never get him back. And I think the fear of that is enough for her to maintain herself. But she actually falls apart, and she ends up kissing him in the car because she's madly in love with this man. And the beauty of it is that he doesn't know her at all. He doesn't recognize her, yet he still feels that love. And to me, that is the most romantic thing in the world, that he still, after all he's been through, he still feels something for this person. And I think knowing that, is, I don't know, it blows me away. So I know that for me to know that about somebody, whether it's a true character or a character in this movie, a true person, it makes me believe in love that much more, that somebody could love you, you know, a lifetime away, that they don't even recognize you and still have that feeling. I think that it hits her so hard, because when they're in the Wichita hotel, she turns around and she needs to get out of there. Here's the disc, you know, change it, you know, exchange it, and then she needs to get out of there, but she doesn't in the end, because he says these words to her that, you know, strike her in such a way that she can't help but turn around and take them in. I mean, what woman in the world doesn't want to hear that, you know? And she ends up kissing him again, and then she jets away. But it's easy to make it a love story when you think about something like that being true. It's easy to put yourself in that situation and to have hope that love is like that, you know, in the end, even if you're completely unrecognizable. I think that's a good way to go in terms of this, because the history of it is completely obliterated anyways. He's not supposed to remember anything. But Vincenzo and I had discussed it. When he came to Los Angeles, we had lunch together, and I told him that I thought the script was a love story. And I think, you know, most people thought, oh, it's this kind of spy movie. And to me, that's part of it, but that's not really part of it. I think the main thing is that it's a love story. It's not a romantic comedy, but it's something, you know, that strikes your heart. And I think he understood that I really got the character, and understood the character and what she was doing there and why she was there and her intentions. So as long as Vincenzo and I knew where we were going with it, I think that was all we needed to get going. I think the less Jeremy and I discuss things, probably the better anyways. The script was sent to me at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I read it and I couldn't put it down. And it was amazing, because usually you'll get a script at that hour, and you'll read for 60 pages, and you kind of determine whether or not you're going to do it or not. And I couldn't put it down. And then when I finished reading again, I had to go back and reread. And they had also sent me Vincenzo's tape, which I had seen the movie originally when it came out in theaters, and I re-saw the tape, and I just saw the whole thing come together very quickly. So I feel really grateful that I'm on this film, because it could have really been anybody playing this part, and I was lucky enough to be really a part of it, you know? And I feel like I had a grasp of what was kind of what they kind of wanted, and I thought maybe I could interject and put things that maybe people didn't expect, that were more subtle, but something that I could add to it in terms of color. And I also thought, since this is set in the future, you know, it's nice for me to be able to change my hair and be somebody different and look like somebody different without them thinking, oh, what happened? You know, she looks like she's not from this time, but that's okay, because I think in the future, that's what's really happening. You know, there's America, and the idea of mixed races and things like that really is nice, and it was so easy for Vincenzo to see that, you know. So it sort of worked out really well. It was a very easy process in the end. I really wanted to do something independent, which is what this film offered, because even though this film could have easily been big, you know, big in terms of the budget and everything else, there wasn't a lot of money involved, and that actually was very tempting for me, because I knew that it was going to be about the work and about the script, and it wasn't going to manifest into some gigantic, you know, nuclear explosion, which sometimes they can. And I like the idea of knowing that the content of something is going to be the most important thing about the script. And honestly, Rita's a very small part of this script. I mean, this is Morgan Sullivan's script. You know, it's his life, and she comes in and she's just a few moments in the whole film, and then she sort of fades away. And it's nice to kind of come in and do a little manipulating here and there, and sort of play different notes and then take off. So really, Jeremy is the one who's been doing an unbelievable job, and with the night shoots that we've been having, it's been pretty brutal. So I take my hat off to him. I've only been here for 3 weeks, and I'm almost dead. Because you know the action you're involved in. For this, you don't think it's going to be as you know the hours are going to be long, but you don't know they're going to be as long as they are, on top of all of the it's just very condensed. It's extremely condensed. So when you're in a concentrated situation, everything is so packed in there that you don't really have time to digest it. I mean, we're doing, on Charlie's Angels, we do maybe an eighth of a page to a quarter of a page, you know, a day. and it was about the look of it and about the feel of it. And this is about 6 to 7 pages a day, and it's about the look and the feel and everything else. So you have to take all that into account, and on top of all the dialogue and on top of all of the we'll do maybe 18 setups a day or 9 setups, and there's conditions, it's windy, it's cold, there's a lot of nights involved. So I think going to bed at night, which is 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, and waking up at 5 in the afternoon to go to work at 5:30 or 6, you just don't know what day it is anymore. But then you do an interview and you don't know what you're talking about. But I think for any film that you take on, any project you take on, you don't know what's going to turn out. I mean, sometimes when you do an independent, you think, oh, well, you could at least say, well, it was an independent. We didn't have any money, so this is the best we could do. But for a commercial film, you think, oh, for Christ's sake, we had all this money and it still turned out to be a piece of crap. So no, I don't think it has anything to do with it. I think really, it really varies on what it is that you're working on, and you hope and you pray to God that everybody's working together to make a very specific project, and we all have great intentions. And because there's a lot of digital work in this, and that's going to be a 6-month process after we finish shooting, which is amazing, because we did Charlie's Angels, it turned around in 3 months, and it was and that was digital too, but this is extremely digital and very specific. So to know that basically to know that it's just as intensive, and I hope it turns out. But yeah, there are days when I come and I just don't know. I'm like, oh my God, I mean, is this just over the top? I mean, what am I talking about? I'm talking about all this stuff, and it doesn't really exist, but it exists in your own mind, it exists in the script. So sometimes you feel like, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm doing. But I think that's part of it. I think sometimes when you lose control of something, while you're doing it, sometimes the best stuff comes out of it. So I'm hoping with some of the things that you do know you're doing and some of the things you don't know you're doing, it'll turn into a giant stew of good things, I'm hoping. Vincenzo is somebody that I can't even describe him, because I have such adoration for him and such respect. I think he's a person that you meet that seems very, you wouldn't think, oh wow, Vincenzo's got all these. You just think, Vincenzo, what's the name about? You're not Italian, are you? And then you just go into this whole mindset. I mean, it's almost like you open a door and there's a maze of different paths and different thoughts and different ideas and different visions, and he is, to me, like gold. Watching him work is like watching gold, something being turned into gold, and you can see his mind working, and you don't exactly know what he's doing and saying, but it's turning into something fantastic. And I'm just amazed by him, and I think I'm so glad that Miramax and that Hunt Lowry and everybody has sort of believed in him, because I think he has so much potential. And I've worked with a lot of people before that already have been, become something or were something when I met them. But seeing him, I mean, he's so ahead of his time, and he's been doing this. He said, we went out one day and he said he's been doing this since he was 11 years old. He was shooting on Super 8, and it didn't surprise me. And I thought, wow, why did I think that this is just something that you came upon, when the reality of it is that he's been seeing films and seeing images in his head since he was a young child. And because I don't have a grasp of everything that he knows and he sees, I'm in that much more awe of him. And I hope to continue to work with him or to just be a part of his life in some way, because I just think he's really mesmerizing and fascinating. And not only that, but he has the demeanor of somebody that you could say anything to and he would listen and understand it and feel compassion for you, or he's very, very smart, and he's very kind, and I think I don't think a lot of people are kind. I think a lot of people are nice, but he's very kind. And I've never, given the analogy of a man to a butterfly, but if I could, that's how he is, and that's how he makes me. That's how he kind of like, when he comes and he's just in your vicinity, he's like a butterfly that's sort of landed on your shoulder, and you just can't believe that something as amazing as this creature is right there in front of you. So I just love him. I do. I think we both sort of understood it to be the same thing, and we both brought different ideas to it. And he said, wow, that's a great idea. And he said the same thing to me, and I thought, great, that sounds really interesting and great too. So it wasn't like we came from two different places and or he let me kind of go with whatever I was going with. It was like we had something to begin with. We had a very strong foundation to begin with, and we just sort of added different colors and different, decorations to it. And we never were very far apart on our ideas or in our thoughts, even in his direction, And he'll say, well, I was hoping that you could give me a little bit of this, and I said, I did. You'll see it in the dailies. Just trust me. And he'll be like, okay. And as opposed to saying, oh, I didn't see it, I really want you to put more into it. And I think having that trust and allowing, an actor the ability to say, I did, I put it there, trust me, and for him to move on, first of all, means so much to me, because after he said that, I would pretty much do anything. If he said, jump on this flower pot and start doing, a crazy dance, I would have been like, okay. So once he allowed me that space and really trusted me, I think he realized that he could sort of say anything and I would really do it. So I think there's that mutual respect with both of us. So he's a very creative person, and I think he sees me as a creative person as well, which is rare, because normally it's like, I'm the creative person and you're the one who's going to be, doing the things that I tell you, and that's not how it is. And it's so refreshing and it's so wonderful. And I hope that because we have so much enthusiasm towards what we've been doing, that it turns out to be exactly what he wants, and it's something that I thought I wanted in a great way, but turns out even better than that. He has to have something inside of him that's going to recognize her and want to go there. So in some ways, I agree with you, and I'd like to take credit for it, but ultimately, I think it's what's in somebody's heart and what's in his instinct to go towards something. And she needs to be the firefly that he sort of sees and follows, but at the same time, maybe we can say it's symbiotic. Maybe it's something that they both have to bring together, There's got to be something very basic between the two of them for them to reconnect. Because she loves him so much that she's willing to sever all ties with him and also say, you may never come out of this spell that you're in, and I may lose you forever, but I'm going to do this because it means that much to you and you really want me to, to do this. That's why in the end I think she gets so frustrated when he still doesn't recognize her and he shot her. All of that stuff is not part of the plan when he calls Finster when she comes back with the champagne. And that's what's so devastating about that situation is you can't, when an animal is completely out of control at that point, there's nothing that you can really do as much as you want to grab the animal and just, hold it and hug it and make them know that you're safe and you're not, it's only going to cause more aggression. So I think Rita is definitely an essential part of it, but I also think that ultimately he's the one who has to have it inside him. So I can't say that Rita is the catalyst per se. She's a part of it, but it's what's in his heart that's really the catalyst. And actually their relationship is what the catalyst is. I think it's important for audiences to really lock into you in any way that they can. If they really like your character, they'll go and they'll be supportive fans because they want to see you do certain things, and that's really, really wonderful. And that's something that you hope and you dream of. That somebody will appreciate what you're doing and really want more of that. And I think for an actress, or for me, I feel grateful for that, but I also want to know for myself that I'm doing something that's creative in a way that is going to fuel me. Because I think if I make it something that I care about and that I need and I feel like is something that's very individual to me creatively, then I hope that it will become something that's that much more universal for other people. But if I constantly sort of pander to what everybody wants, I will become a generic version of myself. And yeah, I'll go out and do action, I'll go out and do this, and it's what they want, but they'll even get tired of it, And in the end, once I've pleased everybody, I'll just be the only person who's sort of the empty shell, who sort of forgot what my whole idea of what I'm doing to begin with was. And I don't want to do that. I don't think anyone wants to do that, but I sometimes think if you're in a financial situation or if you're in a situation where you can't get another job because the audience is expecting you to be a certain way, it's an awful place to be. And I don't want to be afraid of not working because I'm not going to be accepted as this or accepted as that. But to have something like this come along is really an amazing thing because I can change my look and look different, and not be something, I'm just not changing my look because I want to look different for the film. It's because I have to look different for the film. And to be in that situation is probably the most perfect situation I could think of. But because ultimately I'm myself, and I'm hoping that the audience, just like Morgan Sullivan, will see that instinctually this person, I don't recognize this person, but there's something about them that's drawing me in, and I'm hoping that that's going to hold true and ring true for all the other things that I do, because ultimately the art of what you do is what you are going to be, and I don't want my trajectory to be so limited in a way that is, you know, just one thing or just two things. I've been lucky to even show those sides of me and for people to be accepting of them, but I think having, you know, red hair and being, you know, in this film is going to be a nice change. Even though it's not, my agent even said to me when he gave me the script, he goes, I wanted to be something completely different, but it's also somewhat of a femme fatale role, so I don't know if you're going to be into it. And I understood what he said when I read it, because I thought, okay, she's still got to be very, she's got to put that wall up for whatever it is and be very subtle with it. But it didn't matter because the script was so good, you know, that that sort of played into the whole thing. But I realized you have to constantly, you know, go to that place, and you have to constantly try different things, even if other people aren't going to see you in that way. And hopefully, you know, something will click. So really, this role isn't as different as the other ones, and I'm hoping it can be more so in the future. But at the same time, it's starting the transition of it just via, you know, maybe a physical appearance. So I'm hoping that that I can continue to do that. And, you know, cutting your hair and dyeing it, or I'm not saying going out and slashing my face, but, you know, doing something different is always nice. And we'll see what the future holds, basically.